Good morning, everybody, and welcome to your daily routine with Icon. We are starting off with a bang. We're going to start our series this week asking well established and happily married individuals 3 things that it takes to get a marriage beyond the first 2 years of marriage and not be a statistic. So, I can honestly tell my audience that I don't even know his name. This is how anonymous it is. So, sir, how long have you been married?
20 years.
Wow, that deserves a round of applause.
That's one bad.
Yes. So if you were to tell our men and women out there in this generation where that's almost an impossibility, 3 things that it takes to get beyond the first 2 years of marriage and not be a statistic, what would you say?
Wow, 3. I think I might even have more in my head, right? But I think one that comes to mind, compromise is big.
Okay.
I think one thing that's helped me and my wife is also being friends.
Okay.
Friendship. But then, I think things like trust obviously are a big part of it. Communication, which will never be perfect, but helps.
So are you saying that your communication could still be a, what do they call it, a work in progress?
Yes.
At the 20th year?
Trust me. Trust me. I mean, I can go back to yesterday where you still have to have a communication thing because maybe there's a breakdown, or just you could do better.
So now, in general, a lot of people say communication, this, that, and that, but nobody gives us like more detail on how to communicate properly. Now, I'm going to give you a little bit of mine. I'm going to say, well, I have been married for 22 years, going on 23.
Okay.
Thank you. Now, I think in order to get past year 1 and 2, see, I'm not a good host. I should have started off with me. That's terrible. Anyway, I would say that one thing that people need to understand that it's not a 50-50, it's almost 100-100, and that's like a direct quote from people, at least myself. One thing that got me beyond the first 2 years of marriage was that I tried in every aspect. I wasn't waiting for him to do exactly 50% and for me to do exactly 50%. Whenever I can do what I can do, for instance, if you have an argument and you're in a really good frame of mind and you have patience and the other partner doesn't seem to have patience that day, you can be the one that's going to carry the burden of having all the patience to help smoothen out the argument. Another day you could be frustrated and they'll be the one that does that. So
100%. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of, so there's all of these components that if we don't manage them well, right? Whether it's trust, whether it's obviously love helps, compromise, perseverance, and finances, right? Because in this day and age, we can't ignore that because it plays a part too sometimes in strange relationships. So there's a lot of those things that if you don't, one, conscious.
Okay, so first of all, in my case, I met my husband when I was 15, and we got married when we were 29. So we had a long time together before we actually, were married. Right, so almost 15 years. So we got to know each other fairly well, I mean very well, in that time period. And then I think the second thing was that we lived together before we got married. So we lived together probably for, I would say, almost 5 years before we got married. So we knew going into it, how each other, what we did on a daily basis. We knew that we could live together because we had already done it. Like, we knew each other's habits from living together. So that wasn't something, like a lot of times when people get married, they've never lived with the person before, so they don't really know how it is to live with that person. We didn't have that trouble because we already lived together. And then I think the third thing was that he was my best friend. Like, during all this time, he was my best friend. So we always shared everything with each other. We were open, honest. I never felt there was anything I couldn't talk to him about, and he never felt that there was anything that he couldn't talk to me about. So we've been married for almost, like 28 years. So, right.
Four.
So, I think because we met each other when we were young, and we stayed together, we had a relationship then, we still have a relationship now, we're still open with each other, and I still call him my best friend, so it's not easy. Marriage is not easy. I think that you have to, I'm not saying, it's been all like flowers and balloons and everything, because we've been through some rough times together, but I think that we're very open with each other, and we talk to each other about everything. If a problem arises, I will never not listen to him. Sure, I'll get mad or he'll get mad, but the anger does not last very long. Like, he's someone that, you could get mad and hold a grudge with people forever. Like, it doesn't matter how mad I am at him. It's just kind of like, I get it out and it dissipates. And it's the same thing with him. So, there are other people I've gotten mad at. I'm like, I'm never talking to that person again, but it's not like that with him. You know what I mean? And I think, and also we share the same faith. You know what I mean? So I think we have a lot in common. We're both Italian. We both grew up, we knew each other's, family, but family ways, you know what I mean? Like, Italians share certain, things that they do culturally, you know what I mean? And we already knew that, so that wasn't something we had to overcome because we knew, you know what I mean, how it rolled. Absolutely helped. Yes, absolutely helped. So, I think it's a lot of just being open, being honest, and knowing that, if you work together at whatever problem you have, you can overcome it, Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Most likely. Yes, most likely. Yes. I was like probably like 80% sure. Yeah. But then, that absolutely, was a deal maker, because then once we lived together, I'm like, of course we should get married. We get along great, so.
Wait until 29.
That's a great question. So, I went away to college. He stayed here for college. So we were together, but not living in the same area, for that time. And then I think, we traveled a lot. Like, we went out a lot. I had a different job then. I worked for an executive search firm. You know what I mean? We were just kind of, and then we lived together. It's not like we were waiting to get married till a certain point. I think we just waited until it felt like, yeah, this is the time,
Thank you very, very much. Let me see. What other question would my viewers want to know? Would you think it would be a good idea
I think it's helpful, because you can get into a situation where you have no idea, what people's habits are. Like, when you live with someone, you really get to know that person, So I personally think, yes,
It's a good idea to do that, because then you really have a
more clear understanding of what you're getting into. So yes, I would say yes. Well, most Italians are Catholic, but I think that helped. Absolutely helped. Yes. Because we knew, we both had the same ethnic background. We both had the same faith. Those things are helpful in a relationship, because there isn't any, thing that you have to overcome, any cultural differences that you really have to overcome. So yeah. He's a year older than me, yeah. No, I mean, I wasn't. We stumbled into each other, and when we both happened to be Italian. So we were a friend of my best friend introduced us. I went to high school with her, and he went to OPRF, and her cousin went to OPRF. So she introduced us. You know what I mean? And then it was just like, you know, we started. What do you do when you're 15? I don't know. You don't go out for coffee because that didn't happen yet. You just kind of hang out, you walk around, you know, like that. So, yeah.
Thank you so much, Judy, for these amazing
My pleasure. Thank you.
On to the next episode of Daily Routine with Cassidy. Successful people who have been successful in marriages about 3 things that they can tell the world that would help people not become a statistic. So I'm going to ask you your name. If you want to give us your name, that's fine.
Louise,
Okay. And Louise, how many years have you been married?
30, 35.
35 years. So you can write a book about it. So if one were to say, could you give us 3 things that you felt that you did or your husband did or just what helped you guys get through that first 2 years of marriage? Because the statistics right now, most couples, their marriages end in divorce within the first 2 or 3 years.
Well, do I look at you or look at this or what? Doesn't matter. Okay. First of all, it was a second marriage for both of us. Our first marriages, both of our spouse died young. So we had that in common. And I think that helped us to appreciate, marriage more than we did the first time, maybe. I mean, we were older. We were more mature, and I think that neither of us wanted to ever have to get married again. I don't want to say have to, but wanted it to last. Right, but our spouses died young. His at 36, I believe, and my husband at 40, and they had both been ill, so it wasn't easy. The last 8 years of my marriage was difficult because my husband was sick a lot, and we had children. I had 1 child, and he had 2 children. So, which eventually became our children because one was 5 and one was 10, and my son was 18, so he was already going to college. But anyway, I think that there was no thought in my mind that I ever wanted to get divorced or didn't want to lose my husband, and I think it made me more tolerant. And I had married a very nice man, but he was a little bit didn't show his emotions that much, and was kind of the kind of person who liked to be in control, but I wouldn't really accept that. And so the second husband, right? And he was very good and loved me very much, but so I just stood my ground. I had already had a husband and a child and worked. I became a nurse after my first husband died, and so I lived in Milwaukee, and my present husband lived in Illinois, so it was kind of a long distance relationship for a while. But I was willing to take, I liked children, so I didn't mind having new children, but to tell you the truth, that was the most difficult part of it, because my daughter was, or my stepdaughter, but now my daughter was 10, and she already had, formed her. She had been formed already. The little boy was 5, so that was easier. But we struggled a bit in the beginning with my daughter, especially because my husband was pretty strict with his kids, and I didn't raise my son that way, so I had to negotiate and adjust, and finally, after the years went by, it all worked out. But I think both of us loved each other and were willing to make adjustments and tolerate, and didn't want, we really did care about each other and had a good relationship, so we just kept working through it, and it worked out. Right. Right. Well, have a true love, for each other. Otherwise, it wouldn't have happened. But because we strongly loved each other, we worked through things.
Any kind of strong relationships, or it's a work in progress?
I'm not sure, because I think that there's so many external problems going on in the world. I think things are more difficult. I think the kids nowadays are worried about the climate, about violence, and right, and so it might be harder for them to be able to get relaxed enough to get into a long-term relationship. I hope that they will, and I think that I wouldn't change anything that I went through, and it wasn't always easy, for sure. Especially that I moved from Milwaukee to Kankakee, which is a small town about an hour south of here. Right, and his wife was well known in that town before she died. She was like Miss Junior League and all these things, and I had always been working, and I was a nurse, and so the first part of it was hard until I got to a job and got to make my own friends and my own person. Right. No, Junior League was a women's organization that was, she was more into society. Doctors were her doctors, and doctors' wives were their friends. And I had been working, I wasn't, that wasn't important to me. They belonged to a country club, and at first I was trying to fit into that spot, but I could. It wasn't for me, and so then I had to make my own spot, and so that was a little bit hard. But well, I was from Illinois. We both were from Illinois originally. Oh, I'm sorry. Well, marrying my husband is the only reason I moved back to Illinois. I lived in Illinois before, and then my husband and I had moved to Milwaukee, and I lived there for 17 years. But then when I married Pat, he already lived in Illinois, and when I look back on it, it probably would have been better if he would have moved to Wisconsin. But I don't know. It was just not. It was more recreation was available, lakes and things like that, and Right. Well, Milwaukee, Wisconsin is a really nice city. It's a smaller version of Chicago. So there, it was a very convenient. But since he had two small children, it wouldn't be fair to uproot them from their schools and all that. So. Lauren is 42 and Adam is 36. And then my son is 53. He was 18 when he moved, yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you so very much. Do you have anything else that you wanted to talk about? Questions that I asked you?
No, just, I'm 76 now, so I know life is getting, I have a shorter time to live than that, so just try your best. That's all yes. And, the little things that people fight about are so stupid. So, my advice is to try to tolerate and look for the good points in the other person, because that's why you married them in the first place. Good, I'm glad that I could help.